Trinh さんです。Next, we'd like to invite our speaker, Mr. Lam Trinh. Mr. Trinh, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here today. Well, before we begin, I think I want to talk about a really interesting topic from two completely separate and different worlds here, financial world. I just want to curious, how many people actually work in TradFi? Raise your hand. Or Web2 in the past? Okay. How many people work in Web3 or represent the DAO? Yeah, all right. So pretty good balance, all right. So basically we got two completely different financial universe, right? We have the TradFi, suits and tie, hierarchy, and then we have the new kids on the block, DAO, represented by our Web3, right? And then, but today I want to show the line on what can DAO and what TradFi learn from each other. So what can DAOs learn from TradFi in general? I think there's 3 points here I'm going to tackle on. One is treasury diversification. Second is risk management best practices. And third is operational chaos versus established standards. I'm going to go deep into each of these points in the following slides here. So first, let's talk about TradFi treasury strength, right? I don't think we give enough praise for it. If you look at this picture here, what can you see? I think you can see that there's commodities, there's gold, there's real estate, stocks, bonds, forex, so many different diversified investment options that's actually available, right? From that people can trade and TradFi company can actually have access on. And also good to know that it's actually come with much higher liquidity in traditional markets. Like for example, let's say if Apple or Microsoft, one of the FANG company, were to sell their bonds for $1 billion, I think the market can actually absorb it. And that's a huge size. But let's say even 1% of that, like 10 million US dollars, were to be sold in a DAO treasury token. That would probably tank the price of the DAO treasury token significantly. And also the third point here is that the professional treasury management capability from the TradFi company is actually quite strong. They can have rebalancing discipline and proper risk management and scenario analysis. So I want to explain why DAO need to have treasury diversification. One is that, so the majority of the DAOs, their own token is actually in their own token. But if you actually think about this, most businesses, TradFi treasuries, they do not list their own stock as an asset on their balance sheet, but DAO somehow actually lists their governance token on their treasury. And then due to this, right, but I think this actually should be discounted because that DAO token is not the same as like stocks. And the second point, third point is kind of linked together, but there's a huge volatility in the crypto market. And you know, during the bear market, most tokens usually go down 70, 80%, right? And then they heavily correlated with the blue chip, Ethereum or Bitcoin. So then when the crypto crashes, everything go down, and this create a liquidity crunch. So further on here is a slide here. This is DAO treasuries. This data was actually compiled from DeepDAO in early September 2025. So if you look at the blue colors, the blue color represent the own native token, right? What can you see here? The majority is blue. So the median line, these are, by the way, these are the top 10 DAOs by the size of the treasury. So the median is about 98%, which means that the majority of the treasury is actually in their own token. But what does this mean though? This means that if there's a significant liquidity or market bear event, then it's going to take the majority of the hit, right? And even the outlier here, if we look at like Sky, they still have majority, but like 57% is still in their own native token. And then let's look at another picture here to illustrate the point. This is also from DeepDAO. So on this graph here, I've already excluded the native assets. So here we are looking at the non-native assets. The y-axis is in millions US dollars. So if you look at even the most more diversified one, like Manto, Sky, ENS DAO, what do they invest in? The smart one invests in stablecoin, blue chip, Ethereum, BTC, and then liquid staking and you. These are actually the one that will be able to save you or rescue, because basically if you think about a traditional TradFi company, right, you need cash in an event, like in a black swan event like COVID that happened, right? You do, so DAO is the same thing. You also need to pay for your working groups, pay for delegates, pay for programs, pay for things to run, right? So even for the top out of the 5, in the top 10 here, they actually only have about like 2 million on non-native assets. This is a potentially big risk when it comes to a bear market, right? Because the market will not be forgiving. And then let's look at the side of the risk management here. This is Beanstalk is a decentralized credit-based stablecoin protocol. So back in 2022, okay, and they already decentralized the whole governance, the process, but unfortunately, the code was working properly, right? They professionally audited by smart contract firm, but unfortunately, one of the hacker used a flash loan attack. What is a flash loan? Flash loan is a transaction where the attack borrow and then repay in the same transaction in the flash of a finger, right? That's why it's called flash loan. So in this case, they were able to borrow $1 billion, and then from there they buy the BEANS token, which is a governance token. And so with the 1 billion they were able to borrow, they use it to buy the BEAN token, and then since now they own the majority of token, according to the governance rule, they only need to have 2/3 of the governance token in order to create an emergency proposal. An emergency proposal means that they can just create it and execute it right away, and that's exactly what they did. They create a malicious proposal right at that moment, and then from there they were able to drain the treasury asset, taking away 77 million in non-Beanstalk assets, so effectively killing the protocol overnight. So, I mean, obviously some of the lesson here that if there was some robust risk management practice, and then also a security council or time delay approval, then it could have prevented this from happening. So in TradFi, here's another thing. I call this the anti-fragile approach that could be somewhat relevant for DAO treasury in general. For TradFi in general, if you look at it, I would say the majority, like 70, 80, or 90% would be in super safe, low yield, but also very safe assets. And then the minority, maybe 10 or 20% in high-risk tokens or high-risk assets. So DAO can also apply the same. And why is this good? This is good because it actually limits your downside while retaining the upside potential. So you still have a bit of a risk, like high yield, to be able to earn some yield, but then you don't actually like gamble the majority of the treasury away, right? So this is a good, effective way. And then the third problem that I mentioned earlier, right, is have to do with the DAO operational challenge. If you look at this picture, what can you see from here? This is a very busy office, right? But I mean, if you look deeper into it, like it's who's the boss, who is doing what, and it's actually very chaotic, right? And who even knows what the other workers are doing, right? It's quite a big mess. But that's basically what's happening a lot in a lot of the DAOs nowadays. There's not a lot of standards, like delegates are not really clear on what need to be done, right? The roles are somewhat fluid, but also opaque. There's need to be more standards for it. And then second part is about DAO need accountability and responsibility. So let's say if you were a TradFi or company, a third-party organization that want to deal or have contract with a DAO, whom do you deal with at the DAO, right? DAO is not like a legal entity per se, so it's not like a counterparty. In TradFi, if you go talk to ABC or Sony Corporation, for example, then you know that there's compliance officers, there's people there, there's a face there, right? But then here you have to do the due diligence to be able to find out. And the third problem is you have to do with, I call it the principal agent problem. In this case, so the principal are the token holders, right? And then the agent are the delegates. Because a delegate, the way it works in DAO is that token holders, they delegate one time their voting power to the delegates. And then afterward, the delegates control the vote, but then they can vote however they like. Usually it's just a one time, that's why it's a set and forget thing. And this create a principal agent problem because they don't have the aligned incentive, right? It's not, they vote, but it's not really based on measure performance or not KPI, and that can create trouble. But it's not all, well, I think talk a lot about things that are troubling DAO as well, but I think now we can look on the other side of the mirror. What are the things that could be troubling that TradFi could also learn from DAOs as well, right? So these are the three key points I'm going to talk about. One is have to do with real-time transparency. Second is composability or modular execution. And third is a global contributor network with our legal entities. And what does this mean? I will go deep into each of them again. And for DAO, I think we all know that DAO and crypto in general has real-time transparency. There's on-chain KPI, dashboard, key performance indicators, metrics for most DAOs. You can actually see the contributor compensation, the governance participation rate, voting proposal, who actually won the, which proposal actually got passed, which proposal was declined, and then you can also view the treasury balances as well in real time. All of this can be actually viewed in real time. And then this actually helps for token holders and delegate can actually see the revenues and profits of the DAO as well, so they know what's going on. I think this kind of transparency actually helped to build trust. And then but this is something that for up and coming startups in TradFi usually face with. Like I think we've seen the case with the smoke and mirror startups. I think just two examples here from Wirecard and Theranos, right? These are the companies that pretending to have product market fit, but in the end they don't have. But had there been some sort of a transparent KPI dashboard for this company, then I believe that the fraud might have been prevented, right? And the next point is, if you look at this beautiful Lego tower, I think people will probably realize this is Lego toy set, right? And what's so nice about it is that you can use the different pieces of the Lego set to create whatever shape or whatever building in structure. And that's basically the same for in Web3 world, in the DAOs world as well. It's financial service, basically different application are built like Lego blocks. They can be composable pieces of code that anyone can mix and match to create new products from there. And then this is actually in very contrast to TradFi, where TradFi, a lot of the services often exist in silos, whereas with like each bank or company with its own closed software requiring contracts and lengthy integration to work together. So what TradFi can learn from here is that there's a lot of the plug and play governance modules available and different tools that can be adopted and play. And there's two of these ready to use DAO framework that's quite common. Moloch DAO is a open source framework that's been actually used to the backbone of many of the DAOs up until now. And then Naos Builders is the tool that Naos DAO, which I will touch upon in a couple of minutes. It's basically they allow other community to spin up similar DAOs like Naos DAO in days. So let's talk a bit more about like I would say this is one of the proven or the commonly used governance stack for a lot of Web3 DAOs and how they function, and it's actually very effective. So on the top, you would see there's blockchain platforms. You have Ethereum, a lot of the layer 2s and any of the layer 1s as well. Usually that's typically used for the recording of transaction, a proposal, on-chain, right, transparent. And then follow one step down, you have the governance tool. You have Snapshot for off-chain voting, Tally for on-chain voting. Off-chain meaning like there's no transaction being recorded on-chain, on the blockchain. On-chain, it just means it's recorded on the blockchain. And then Gnosis Safe is a common multi-sig wallet that's actually being used. And then there's, of course, the various different collaboration tools for DAOs and community that they use, right? Discord for public community gathering, town hall, and discourse usually for forum discussion and proposal posting, Notion for collaboration, and then analytics, right, for doing analytics and Etherscan and other software monitoring tools as well. And then here, the third aspect from DAO, which is, I think, one of the, not only for DAO, but also for crypto in general, I think it's a very striking aspect is how quickly new ideas develop and deploy, often by even very little teams, so actually very small teams and individuals, right, punching above their weight. I think that's a nice thing because in DAO and Web3, the fast-moving culture, there's very little gatekeeping process over there versus in TradFi, right? If you want to access a new market, it'd probably take you 6, 12 months or even a couple of years to set up new markets as well. But then for DAO, if they want to have new contributors, you have seen many DAOs that expand across borders and across region and hiring people from all over the world and having people to operate without any subsidiary or local offices. And I want to go over one example of this is Naos DAO. I think many people might have seen this. Naos DAO is a community-owned brand that makes a positive impact by funding ideas and fostering collaboration. So if you look on the diagram here, I want to explain it a bit. Each Naos DAO here is an NFT, right? And the NFT has a different pieces of it that make it up. And every day on the smart contract, it's written automatically so that every day there's an auction for a new piece of NFT, right, or the non-fungible token, the ad drawing here. And then the person who bought it, they can actually acquire the NFT, but they also acquire one vote. And that vote allows them to vote on a different proposal in the announced DAO treasury. But also, if you look on the lower side, you see that the treasury would actually, the funds, the proceeds from the auction will go towards the treasury. And then the treasury just keep growing every day, right? And then from this treasury, and they allow people to apply, people from all over the world can apply for their global funding. I think right now there's 2 programs applicable. One is like the small grants, anywhere from 0.1 to 10 ETH. These can be aimed for like creators, developers, or small artists, people who want to run any sort of events or small project, right? It doesn't even have to be Web3 project. It can also be Web2. And then for proposals, from anywhere from 10, they actually fund from 10 to 1,000 ETH, and I think that's quite a lot of money to fund even big projects as well. And of course, the best thing is all of these proposals is open and on-chain governance for people to vote on, and people who can vote, like I said earlier, the people who are the holders of the NOWs token. So this is how they allow a global contributor network to basically to contribute and develop together. So let's wrap it up here, and then I think there's a couple of the takeaway here is for DAOs. I want to touch upon takeaway for DAOs first. For DAOs, it's very important that they have some sort of a treasury diversification plan or strategy, so that will help to sustain DAO in the long run, right? And through multiple crypto cycles, because I'm quite sure that most DAOs, they don't want to just be here for just one market cycle and then just be here like a tourist and then go. So I don't think we have the right answer as to like what is the optimal composition yet of the DAO treasury, but I would probably surmise to say that 40 to 60% of the native token is probably quite sufficient. And then as opposed to earlier when I said like 98% of the native token was actually in most of even the major DAOs, right? And then also they probably need to have a runway of 12 to 18 months in stablecoin or liquid assets that will allow them to fund their programs, contributors. And then when it comes to risk management framework, definitely need to have in place a best practice, I would say time lock delay, stage approval, or even a security council that would be there to intervene in case of some malicious hacker or exploiter come by. And then when it comes to token holder issue, I think established operational standards would actually be very helpful for DAO stakeholders, like who's clear responsibility of who does what, and also I think this can also help to address for the principal agent problem I talked about earlier. I believe the pay for performance objective, usually if you accomplish this task, accomplish this project, then you will get paid. I think that's probably one of the best way. And then for TradFi, right? What can TradFi learn? I think, transparency is one. But obviously, I don't think this is going to happen from day one. I think TradFi can begin with non-sensitive KPI. By that I mean, you have ESG scores, supply chain metrics, customer satisfaction. These are the non-financial metrics that companies will probably be willing to share at first. And then gradually, they can expand and then include financial metrics as well to show the world that they are doing properly in public dashboard, of course. And then the modular execution or composability. I think TradFi and companies can also create plug and play governance templates for new businesses, new acquisition when it comes to new businesses that they can just reuse, and build internal APIs for compliance checks that any division can access. I think that's pretty common in Web3 nowadays, that KYC is a thing and bring people on chain. And last point about the global contributor network, I think the companies can create some sort of their own open innovation network. I think these are 2 examples below here from Cargo, the machine learning, competition community, and XPRIZE that tackle like a lot of humanity. These would be like good format to adopt, right? Where businesses use challenges to fix up, and then basically to help to fix business problem, but process problem as well. And also at the same time, increasing the contributor pool. So I think that the organization that win in the next decade probably won't be just traditional or purely decentralized. probably be the one brave enough to somewhere that, you know, taking the best practice from both the TradFi and then the decentralized worlds as well. And that's what I'm here to share about. Will this tool will be a hybrid future? To be honest, I don't know. I don't have the future for this, but I think we can just wait and see. Thank you very much.